Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hue virtual chat. I'm Tracy Koga, and I am so happy that today we are celebrating our 30th show. And if you asked me 6 months ago or 5 months ago, however it was, actually on April 7th was our first show, that this would continue this long, I would say probably not. But in this course of time, I have met so many amazing women. So I sent out a mass email to everyone, and everybody's got their busy schedules. But I'm so happy, though, that for everybody that came today, it means so much. And you know what? I think we are going to continue on these chats because I think a lot of women feel that they're very important, and we're able to talk, do the real talk. So let's welcome all of our guests to our 30th show. And it's all going to be about what everybody has gained and learned. Oh my goodness, I love that background, Cynthia. Oh, hello, hola. Oh, and Susie, and hi, Jess. Hi, Robin. Love the tie. Super, super cool. Hey, and there's Kirsten. Hello.
Hello.
See you for a few weeks. Hi, Charlotte. Hi, Nanette. Primrose is joining us. So welcome, everybody. I know that there's a lot more women that have joined in these chats over the 30 weeks. This is our 30th show, and it's all because of you, each and every one of you that have been so loyal. Oops, and I hear a ding. Have been so loyal, and we've been able to have, like, I think, some amazing conversations that normally I don't think, I know I wouldn't have, and I've learned so much. So this is going to be a little bit about how life has been, what's your takeaway from all of this, including this virtual chat, and I guess how your lives have changed. I mean, we started this April 7th. We're now September 1st. And oh, by the way, Cynthia, it's already fall. It's like August 31st, it's the cutoff date, the sun goes down, the leaves start changing, and it is effing cold outside. And just like last week, we were like complaining, it's so hot, it's so hot. So it's Winnipeg. Love it or leave it, right? So I'm going to start with Cynthia because you have been our guest abroad, you know, our wonderful connection to the world outside. So how have you been? How is summer? And I guess through all of this, being able to join in our chats, you have been amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I am blessed that at least for the next 5 days, I'm still in this tropical paradise of Medellin, Colombia. I was supposed to be in Split, Croatia, which is the background behind me. And I'm actually headed to London, England. So I'm actually moving north, but heading back to the land of my birth to establish, but also to reestablish my Irish citizenship. As a part of living this nomadic life. And, you know, it has been interesting during this cycle with, you know, these virtual Hue chats and connecting with everyone is really, it's all happened at the same time as I've been working on my own personal growth. I consider it the gift of COVID is that it's given me the time to slow things down and to really do some deep work, have some very difficult conversations and realizations with myself, and you know, ready to kind of move on to another stage of that, and hopefully the Hue and the relationships continue to move on as I continue to find a new path of growth and enlightenment along the way.
Oh, you know that we're always going to be here for you. I mean, yeah. I was going to ask you quickly now, moving back to London, England. I mean, yeah, I guess it's always in the back of your mind, right? Safety and health and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and there's still up to 24 to 48 hours. There's no guarantee flights will happen. We've already gone through that once in the last week. We've rebooked alternate routes. Actually, I'm traveling through the United States. So I hope that that goes okay and doesn't cause difficulty going through Florida, which has been a very hot state. But that's where the layover is. So yeah, we'll kind of go with the universe. We've set our intention. I believe the universe has heard us, and we'll just put our faith and trust in our beliefs that this is going to happen, and we'll deal with it. If not, I'm here till December. So that I've already decided. Yeah.
That's the way life is. Oh, I want to now. Oh, hi, Primrose. How are you doing, Primrose? Hey, how's that book going?
Off mute. Okay, I'm off mute.
Yeah.
It's going really well. I'm almost finished. I had to ask for an extension, but I'm the one who set my own deadline. So, so it's okay if I extend my own deadline.
Yes.
I can't give any details yet, but I'm very, very excited about it.
Well,
Very
quickly, because I think, I don't know if Cynthia doesn't know about it. I know for sure Jess doesn't. So maybe just kind of do a little overview of your book.
I was approached by a publishing company back in the spring, and they wanted to have more diverse voices. My head has been in the food space lately because I have a food blog on Instagram. I'll plug myself, Peg on a Plate on Instagram. And because my head was in that spot, I was going to feature restaurants, and I wanted to talk about the immigrant experience, about coming to Manitoba and looking at how they came here in that journey. Then COVID happened. And so that was put on hold because I couldn't go out to meet people. And a lot of these older restaurant owners don't have access to computers, Zoom, or unsure about the technology. And so I put it on hold. I wasn't sure what else I could do. And then I came up with the idea July. And I'm just trying to flesh it out. And I'm about 90% through writing. I can't give any details yet. I don't want to jinx myself by revealing what I'm doing publicly yet, but I will give some details soon. But looks like I'm going to possibly have a novel published. And the company is very interested.
Oh my God, that is so good. You know, see, look there's good in all of this craziness, right?
This year has been a really good year for me writing wise. For those who don't know, I'm also a playwright. And I've been contacted by theaters regarding diverse voices. And it's just a very exciting time. And it's a shame that it had to be born out of tragedy, that people are more willing to listen. But I'm excited for the doors that opens.
Yeah. Oh, well, we can hardly wait. Maybe I can get like an exclusive then, right?
Absolutely.
And so happy to see you, and welcome, Jessica. Again, you and Hani have been like through all of this. I mean, so wonderful to meet you and to learn about what your group and your organization is doing. So, I mean, and you know what, and comment too personally, Jessica, on how this has all kind of affected you too. So what's summer been like?
Thank you so much for having us on. We've come on a couple times through our COVID-19 anti-racism campaign. We've had a couple of our staff, or a few of our staff now. So I just want to give a big thank you to all of you and Tracy for hosting this type of platform. Our first time on the show was right after we launched our campaign in May. And even just from the conversation and many of the women here, I actually learned so much. Like, Susie, you talked about the co-conspirator rather than the ally, and I was just like mind blown, and then just went on this, like, this is what we have to do. So it really did, having this platform to kind of talk things through really did shape the way we ended up taking the campaign and not just focusing on surface level stuff. So I really appreciated having these conversations, and we built some connections that have been instrumental to our campaign through this platform. So it's been really, really helpful for us from the beginning. But really, when we started that campaign, you know, we thought we would be creating some resources, putting on a couple events and partnerships with other organizations, and, you know, denouncing the COVID-related racism that was happening. And then, you know, the current global context with George Floyd's death and murder, and then people like awakening to realize that systematic racism and overt racism exists throughout Canada and in the US and throughout the globe, really did shape our campaign into being much bigger than we could have anticipated. So I think I was counting the other day, and we've maybe had 9 events, like lunch and learns, trainings, coffee chats. We've created a few different types of resources, built partnerships with other networks across the country. And it's been, yeah, it's a really interesting time to have started this type of work because people are actually open and interested in learning more. But what that's meant is we have a lot of work to do. So it's not stopping here. We're starting to plan. We just finished some lunch and learn series in the summer. So we're gonna, and those lunch and learns went over pretty well. So I think we're gonna do them in the fall as well. We have some anti-racism training coming up in the fall. So it kind of just, yeah, I guess I just want to say thank you for kind of bringing us on the show and letting us talk about our campaign and really helping us out to get the word out, and giving us really good feedback and teaching us every time that we've come on. So thank you.
Well, no, and well, we thank you, but I just wanted to ask too, because you've expanded your circle. What has been the reaction from people, you know, coming to your events? You know, what kind of conversations have been sparked?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think what I've learned is people are at different, let's say, spectrums of their understanding of racism. So I think we've had our more intimate events, I guess when we've had our lunch and learns, we did them in person, all socially distanced, but they were a bit smaller. So 25 to 40 people in a park. Those went over really well because we could have more in-depth personal conversations. So we'd always go around in a circle and have people ask questions or share their experiences. So those settings where we could have safe conversations, I could feel kind of the growth and had feedback that people really did learn and take from that and want to learn more and search for more ways that they could incorporate anti-racism into their lives. We did have bigger trainings virtually with like 200 people. And it's hard with those type of events because people are really on, like, some people don't even understand what racism is in a definition, while some people may have more, they have lived experience or have studied it. So in those bigger settings where you have 200 people, it's hard to make sure everybody is fully engaged the whole time. But I really do feel that kind of having those different platforms, so some more intimate, some more bigger virtual, or having those resources has been, folks have been really open to having those type of conversations. And a lot of people are asking a lot more questions. So another really cool thing that's come from our campaign is that we partnered with Elmwood Community Resource Center to actually create a racial trauma counseling and support program. So we were noticing that in Winnipeg and in Manitoba, most people, when they were actually targeted, like had experienced racism, they would go to their ethnocultural community leaders, or they go to their friends, go to their family, but there wasn't a place where somebody would be able to like sit down and maybe counsel them and maybe have some of the trauma-informed support available. So we, Elmwood Community Resource Center, are kind of already experts in trauma counseling. So we partnered with them to create this service because we saw there was a bit of a gap. So that was kind of great to be able to now, if folks are comfortable with talking about it and getting some cultural empowerment support, there's a place that they can go. But I guess overall, I felt that it's a tragic time as people are now realizing finally what's been going on to society forever. but also a really positive time because people are open to actually questioning themselves and learning more and actually incorporating anti-racism in their lives. So we've had a pretty good feedback from the campaign so far. No like blatant attacks on social media, which has been good.
Yeah, wow. No, that's amazing. And I think that's a good segue to Robin and Charlotte and Kirsten and what they do because, hey, mental health, whoa, mental illness. You never said that or talked about that, right? And we all are living, with some shape and form of fear, anger, depression, you name it. And so Robin, I guess, how has summer been? Whatever summer is or was. And I mean, as we head into fall and schools, well, we'll get to schools with Susie in a moment, but yeah, I mean, mental health and wellness.
I think one of the things that we're seeing at the moment, and like worldwide, because I'm connected to like people in the mental health sector across the world, and people said, there was a bit of there was a lot of anxiety and depression, and like people were trying to like dig their way through it. And I think people were in a place where they were like, well, it's only going to be this long. What we're seeing across from talking to my counterparts, what we're seeing is people are getting, some people are starting to call it COVID fatigue, and they're dropping lower because they're like, we thought it was going to be 5 or 6 months and it's not. When we started, people like, I'm anxious because I don't know how long this is going to be and I've lost my job, or, we're out of work for a set time and we've started to come back. But people are in this kind of, it's a second wave of mental health stuff where they're going, I have no idea when this is going to end and I don't know what this looks like. And it's been interesting, right? In some places, there's been an increase in suicide, which I'm like, yeah, I get that totally. New Zealand just had the lowest suicide stats in like decades. And then I look at what New Zealand's done in terms of COVID, and I go, is there a correlation? Like, having done some public health, I know cause and effect, like we don't really know, but I'm like, it's interesting to kind of just look at that. But in terms of this, for me, I think what I've seen is, and I was thinking about this earlier, it's like the good, the bad, and the ugly of people. Like we've seen people step up in a way that maybe they've never stepped up in a way before because they went, like, we're battling a similar thing, even though we're coming at it from different places. We've got like people who are like, this is just a conspiracy. What the hell are you talking about? And then we've got people who like are just doing outrageous things like spitting on other people. And I guess for me, I've watched the world slow down. And I'm really looking at like people now and who are people, and recognizing like who are phenomenal people. But then I'm also looking at those other people who are doing some outrageous things, going, what's happening with their mental health and what's happened in their background that has them choose to do that. And so there's this kind of weird compassion and empathy for me for wherever people are at. And some days I just want to be mad about it all, and I'm like, that's actually not going to change it. So how do I show compassion and empathy for everyone, even if they're not showing it at that time? Because, as Jessica said, I don't know what their backgrounds are. I don't know what their traumas are, but But I think in terms of this, I saw some people requesting that we start to ask the World Health Organization and governments to look at adding more money to mental health. And we've had this big discussion about, is it about adding money to mental health or looking at society and how we support society as a whole with everything, rather than just going, it's about mental health, because the things that occur in society are the things that impact our mental health. I don't know, it's just rambling. Did that make sense?
Well, you know, it all does. It all does. And you have managed to always, yeah, find the silver lining in anything, even if it means a bit of humor. And humor can be actually some pretty darn good medicine every once in a while. But yeah, so all things considered, Susie. She says, yeah, so I mean, if we're talking about getting things back to normal and what normal is, and we've done all that, family, your kids, now it's going back to school, you know, a week from today. Are your kids going?
Yeah, so they are set to go. But, you know, I mean, so for example, New York Public Schools just delayed their start to September 21st as of this morning. So, I mean, we go right back to what we were just talking about with Robin about how people don't really know what's happening. So we are living in unprecedented times in terms of we don't know what's happening really. And this uncertainty is, it's upsetting. It's upsetting and it's not normal for us. We're used to knowing how things work. You know, first comes A, then comes B, and that cause and effect thing is very, the word I used the other day in my girlfriend and my conversation was unmoored. You know, so we're just kind of, you know, floating along, trying to navigate the best that we can, but we don't know when the next port is. We don't know when the next stop is, and that's very unsettling for a lot of people. So in terms of, you know, fatigue, and that just means like emotional fatigue, psychological fatigue. Parents are experiencing it. Teachers are definitely experiencing it right now. Anybody who's working in a school system, and of course our kids are. So yesterday we took the kids out. We went for a walk and went to get some French fries here locally. And we're standing there waiting for our order. This is an outside kiosk. And my little one who's 10, she looks up at me and she says, "Mama, when is this gonna be over?" And I'm looking at her sweet little face and I'm just like, you know what, baby? I said, I don't know. I said, I really don't know. And I said, everybody's doing the best that they can. But I said, I wish I had an answer for you. And that might not be the answer everybody would give, but that's how I am with my kids. I like to be very honest and forthright with them so that they know what's happening really, to keep them as informed as they can be and manage their expectations in their tiny frames of reference as best as they can. And for me to say, oh, it's going to be over soon, everything's going to be fine, well, that's a lie at this point. We don't know that. So I prefer to present them with facts, and I can be the optimist for them and they can cry to me, and that's where I'm at as far as school is concerned. As far as Halloween is concerned, like all these people who are excited about Halloween, and I'm like, I think it's adorable that you think we're gonna make it to Halloween. But you know, it's one of those things where I'm literally taking things day by day, and I know I've been saying that since April, since our first broadcast on this Zoom, but it's really true. And I'm just trying to get through the information as it comes to me. And again, big kudos to everybody, all the parents advocating for their kids in the school system right now, all the teachers that are advocating for our kids and for themselves. And I hope that that all the steps that we've taken so far will lead to a safe and healthy school year. But if it doesn't, I'm sure our teachers will do their best to pivot us like they did in March. They did an amazing job. So fingers crossed, everything crossed, hoping for the best, but also slightly preparing for the worst.
Well, yeah, I know. Oh, and Charlotte and Kirsten maybe too. Like Susie said, and we all are, it's just not knowing, and it's what you can't predict. And it does get very, very tiring. And so I'm sure, you know, as peer support workers and hearing from parents, and now with this whole school situation, like we've been hearing that, you know, the teachers are actually losing their classrooms so they can have, you know, do the social distancing, but they could potentially be teaching something totally different at another school. So like this is all this turmoil, and they have to figure this all out in a week, you know, because it still is up in the air.
Well, and some schools, like we're at September 1st, some schools are only putting out their plans by this Friday. Like there's still so much uncertainty. There's going to be shifts in schools. One of my girlfriends did a piece for media yesterday talking about how her daughter is switching from French over to an English school, but she's going to continue her French program within that school. So how does she get ready for that? But you know, what are we supposed to do? You know, we just kind of have to adapt as best as we can, take a deep breath, and just be kind and compassionate to everybody that's trying to work within this system that we're seeing maybe didn't really work that great in the first place, and maybe we can build a better system from this.
Yeah, well, I think again, it's like it's going to change. Robin, you wanted to add something before?
I did. I forgot to say, sorry, Charlotte and Kirsten, bad luck. I forgot to say there's a peer service in the US, just thinking about support for people that we sometimes forget, right? There's a peer service in North Carolina, just got funding to do a peer support group for COVID survivors because of that, some of the long-term impacts for people and what they've gone through, whether it be like minor or whether it be long-term in hospital. And I was just like, I've got to say, that's one thing I think part of the US did well. They set up a group where people can share those experiences. And I can't imagine what it would be like to have gone through that. And so I just wanted to share that because there's some things like that we're seeing turn up too, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we forget the victims who have suffered from COVID too as well. But yeah, we're going to come to you now, Charlotte and Kirsten. Sort of like,
I was just going to put a question back to Susie. So my niece and nephew live in Florida, and they're in middle school and high school down in Florida. They've gone back to school. I've been told they're wearing masks, but the conversation at their school is around grade 13. And I'm just wondering, are the Canadian schools starting to talk with that as well? So my nephew, who is in grade 10, he's already having that. Yeah, I think I'm going to end up having to do grade 13. And no, I really didn't do much work since March. So having some conversations around that. Susie, can you comment on that?
You know, I have not heard any formal discussions about anything like that, about extending school years or even the learning cycle to a grade 13. Perhaps that's happening at a higher government level and they just haven't publicly talked about that yet. I can't say that it would be surprising per se, depending on what province you're in and what your provincial curriculum needs look like. There's a lot of things that are being thrown off right now, right? Like by this current situation we're living in. And I think too about, you know, all those, even students that are writing exams, you know, medical students, law students, like all these things that have to be rejigged and, you know, reformatted for what we're living in right now. So I don't have an answer for that right now, but I think it's a great question for someone to ask at the next provincial presser. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
wow. I don't know how many students would like to go back and have another grade, but doesn't Ontario already have grade 13? Yeah.
Anymore.
I think they
That
did.
was eliminated. No, that was eliminated a few years ago. Yeah, so everybody's on a grade 12 system now. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So Charlotte and Kirsten, how's the summer been? Well, you know, I mean, it's been, we've seen, at least Charlotte's been on a boat a few times. Her boat rides. No, but yeah, I mean, you know, you listen and you talk to parents and stuff like this, you know, working with Robin too, with the mental health and wellness. And do you see a sense of tiredness and fatigue and just like, ugh,
Hey, Kristen, come off mute so we can do this together. It's funny, Kristen and I are, so many
There
of
you
our
go.
conversations are on the same wavelength. We're seeing a lot of, as we call, battle fatigue with family members supporting like parents, siblings, and part of what we do in our family support groups that we have online on Wednesdays is just really start to get them to start thinking about self-care for themselves and acknowledging how tired they are and how that they need to spend some time for themselves. So we always start and finish with, what are you doing for yourself? And it's really interesting to see how some parents hadn't really thought of that. And so they kind of ponder on it for the week. And then when they come back to the next online support group peer support group that we have, they're excited to share with what they've done. And so we've watched over the weeks the growth in that. And there's a couple of moms that we've watched since we've been supporting them since April, really have color in their face. And even though their lives are really hard, they're looking so much better and they're seeing more clearly. And we're super happy to see that. Having said that, Chris and I are getting a lot of families reaching out right now, and there's, and we just feel that's going to keep growing and growing. Next, September 15th, 16th is 6-month mark since COVID really impacted us, and so I think we're going to see more and more people struggling. And I'm going to let Kristen say one thing, but then the one thing, I had a conversation with my niece on the weekend, and I had made a comment to her early on in COVID that she may start to see some of her friends who have never shown any kind of struggling around anxiety or depression, that may be showing up. And I had lunch with her on the weekend, and she said, Auntie Charlotte, you know what, you were right. She said, some of my strongest friends are really struggling right now, and I don't know what to do. So what we have at Robin Priest Live Your Truth is some toolkits that came out of New Zealand, and just giving her some conversation guides of languaging and how to support her friends, because she's really a little bit of a deer in a headlight as to, because they're not expecting it. These are my strong friends. These are the ones that always went out. These are and now switching that. So listening to that when around your friends and your family members, that conversation may be coming up. Hey, Kristen, sorry.
Yeah, no, I, as always, I agree with everything Charlotte says. And when Charlotte and I are working with families, or even having conversations with Robin and in meetings, we kind of we finish each other's sentences. It's actually getting really bizarre. But yeah, and the families that, and to touch on that a little bit more, the families that we're supporting, not only during our Zoom parent support groups do we ask them to check in with their own self-care and put the focus on how they're doing in their health and how they can make sure they're at their best to support their young person. But also there's a huge part of that. It's also about our reaction in the situation and our reaction to our young person who is struggling, because our anxiety is out of control. We are exhausted. We have huge battle fatigue. And if we do a lot of sharing of our experiences, just so we're not, families when they're dealing with their young people, they're not igniting the situation. Just to certain conversations, languaging, approaches, validation, just giving parents tools to have successful conversations, perhaps to have more positive outcomes than to add gas to the fire, because they're in a really uncomfortable place themselves. And families never really think about that, because you're just trying to get through the day and just trying to survive the moment or the chaos. But if we can take a step back and help those families prepare and have tools to have more positive outcomes in those moments, that is huge. Without battle fatigue is huge right now. And I also wanted to say, Cynthia, your tagline, acceptance without understanding, that is, that's my tagline too now when I work with families, because families are often, parents are things don't make sense to them, or they just can't come on board or understand, and to be able to accept it without understanding and just accept and meet your person, your child where they're at. Thank you for that, because that's been a really effective tool for Charlotte and I working with families. Love it.
You're so welcome.
Oh, you're gonna have another one now, Cynthia. Okay, to top that one.
Kirsten, and maybe this is a question for Kirsten and Charlotte and Robin, but you know, you talk about the battle fatigue and things like that, and you know, talking about how I'm answering questions when it comes to my kids about not knowing and things like that and the uncertainty. One of the things that I've been thinking about in my head, and I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but to me, the reason why I answer as truthfully as I can is because these kids are already experiencing anxiety. Okay, so they're nervous and they don't know what's happening. They already feel this internally, right? So if me as a parent, they come to me with a question, they come to me with a comment, or, you know, say, I don't know what's happening. Do we know when this is going to be over? And I say, oh, it's going to be fine. That negates that feeling that they're having inside. And that leads to more trust issues in terms of, well, mama said that it was going to be over and it's not. So who do I trust? Do I trust my inner fear and my inner anxiety, or do I trust the person who's supposed to love me most and look out for me and what she just told me? Those two things are in contest with each other, as opposed to just saying to your child, I don't know what's going to happen, but whatever happens, this remains the same. Our family is together. We're going to work through this together. We're going to find the supports that we need, and that we love each other. And that if you're scared, it's okay to be scared. Mama's a little bit scared too, but I can be there for you, and you don't have to be scared. You can give me your fear, and I can hold on to that for you while you get to be a kid. You know, like that's kind of what I ruminate about in my head. I don't want them to not be certain about what they're feeling, and for me to not validate that, no matter what the circumstance is externally. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. A little clap from Charlotte. Just to also validate, that's a really good question. And yeah, you completely, again, we're not counselors, we're not therapists. However, we have lived experience, and we have peer training and facilitator training. And when you look at the years of what that consists of, and the hours and the years and the days, what did we work that out to one time, Charlotte? 80,000, I think I have 80,000 hours of experience managing a child with supporting a child with a mental health struggle. But so I just wanted to touch on that, because Susie, you're not a counselor or a therapist, but you are the mother of your children, and there's so much value in that. So listen to your gut. Don't
So informally, we all are, right? As parents, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So don't ever say I'm not a therapist or a counselor, because you have more experience than anybody, especially around your children. And you know, one of the things in our peer training is we always are, you know, reminding the peer support workers that we're training that you can't say it's going to get better, because we don't know that. And again, if you start to say that, the person you're supporting is going to not believe you. So you're bang on with what you're saying, Susie, for sure. And you know, I was sending out, Kirsten and I are huge fans of Brene Brown. And if you haven't seen her empathy video, the one with the cartoons, that's a great one to just remind yourself around languaging. So when you're supporting someone who is struggling, you know, validate how they're feeling, and don't sugarcoat it and say, well, at least you're not homeless, or at least you're, you know, blah, blah, whatever, because it's incredibly real for what they're going through. And if we can sit with them and support them in those feelings, you're going to have a better outcome too as well.
I think one other thing to think about too is I love like being truthful with kids and like validating what they're going through and that, because that actually builds resilience in them too. When we sugarcoat it or we go, no, it's going to be okay, like we're not supporting them to build their own resilience through this. Like, let's be real. It's not just COVID. Life happens, and life has all these, if you're a baseball fan, curveballs, and you're like, where'd that come from? And I think sometimes, you know, I've watched some people be really gentle and try and protect kids, and I get why. But then the kid gets older and they get life and they're like, whoa, and they're not prepared at all. So I really thank you for doing that. And I encourage everyone to be respectfully real with kids, right? You don't have to throw them in at the deep end, but you want them actually to start swimming too. So, yeah.
That's a great term. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, Nanette, too, like just the other week or whatever, your daughter did her ballet exam. So I mean, that's pretty cool. And I mean, I guess it was done virtually.
Yes, yes, they filmed the exam, and it was different, very different. The anxiety level was lower because, as you know, they usually fly an adjudicator in. This time around, the adjudicator was not in the room, and so it was a very different atmosphere. It's a little bit more relaxed, but I found myself throughout this conversation, this last 5 minutes, just nodding about everything, because I raised my children the exact same way as Susie is, because things will happen and you have to learn how to deal with it. You have to learn how to pivot. And yes, the ballet exam was a very good example of that. It wasn't ideal, but you do what you can in the environment that you're given this situation. So yeah, she's very relieved it's over. But yeah, it's a lot of okay, so what's the next thing? That's where we are at now. It's okay, what's next? And there is a lot of, there are a lot of unknowns, definitely. She's going into grade 11, and she has her schedule for school. There's still a lot of question marks. There's still a lot of shifting we all have to do, and our big focus in this house has been recently, especially, what can we control? What can we handle? My children are very, they're not secretive. They're very open, but at the same time, they're very introspective, and they stay within their, because they think a lot about, okay, what's going to happen? What's going on now? And but they also like, okay, Mom, have you heard from the school yet? Have they sent us anything? And it's like, we can't control that. Right now, things are changing so quickly. And I didn't know that thing about New York schools having to push their, like, you have to pivot, you have to shift when you can. And so yeah, this whole summer has been a summer of us, okay, what can we do? What can we do? What have we pushed aside because of life that we can now look at? And like, oh, I've done some renovations here at home, and my daughter's, trying to do some workouts, like things that we can do, because we know that there are a lot of things right now that we have to sit and wait. We just have to wait. And that brings up a lot of anxiety. But at the same time, it's like, we sit, we wait. What can we do in the meantime? So we don't go bonkers. And and so far so good. Like, my husband started teaching his classes. He teaches at Red River, so he started classes yesterday, and so we're sort of moving along. Yes, we're moving along, adjusting, and sort of, yeah, hurry up and wait. Definitely, Robin. We just sort of sit there and go, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? So yeah, it's I definitely have to admit, it is a very different circumstance for me, because my son is 18, my daughter's 16. I don't have little children who I really honestly, kudos to all the parents with younger kids, because I don't know how I would be able to handle a situation like this. It's hard, but it's definitely a learning experience. Definitely resilience is something that we're all going through. We're all learning right now. So yeah. It's all good.
So many words, well, resilience, empathy, understanding, acceptance, patience,
Yeah.
safety. What is comfortable now has changed so much, and so in such a short time. And just listening now, like this whole anxiety over schools and and our children. I'm going to throw it out there for you ladies too. Has this kind of also had more of a global effect on how children react too? So like Jessica, the racism, the discrimination, those are like big words that most young kids had no idea. Susie, and you said it too, like you thought with your children, they would never ever have to go through any of this or see any of this. And I know for the ladies too. How has that, do you think, affected our young people? Because they are our future. And I know we've talked about being truthful and everything like that to them. Is there some, though, sort of part of us too that we want to obviously protect our kids, but how much is too much?
And who's your question for, Tracy? So, or is it just wide open?
Yeah, it's wide open.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that when your kids get to a certain age, when they are aware of what's happening in pop culture, okay, so if you, for example, my kids are heavily into sports. My son is following, things that are happening in the NBA. He knows all about, the protests that are happening and walking off the courts and the fields, and they're not dumb, right? They're paying attention to this this social activism that's happening right now. And even if your kids aren't into sports, they still have things like BTS, and all that stuff, the K-pop fans and what they're doing online and what they're being active about. So it's interesting in that, you live in this world as an adult with the news and everything, but your kids are still picking up things from pop culture and social media and things like that. So then it becomes incumbent upon you to ask them, okay, what are you seeing out there? What do you know? What have you heard? And do you have any questions? And let's talk about this and explore your opinions, because they're smart, they have opinions and they have questions, obviously, but it's interesting to ask them, okay, how did you come to that opinion? How did you come to that way of thinking? And let's talk about this. And what are you scared of? What are you questioning? I think those are all healthy, smart things that we should be asking of our children.
Yeah, tough conversations. And Charlotte, you're right. It's young parents with young adults, and yes, and we have them too. And those are even sometimes more difficult conversations to have, because they have their opinions already formed. But yeah, and even everyday life too. It's, well, and we've had this discussion too. I mean, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. Why is this an issue? I don't know. Yeah, and Cynthia's nodding. So what is the situation in Colombia?
We finished what they call Pico y Cedula, which is basically the days you're allowed out. So the systems come to an end. They're relying on citizens to behave. I think everyone knows that Colombia, like many countries in South America, are driven by an informal economy. People have been devastated. Again, I live in a very safe bubble, and I know that I do. But we get families, like entire families, kids, grandmas, parents out on the street begging, coming asking for money. And I just see, because I had been in some of the less affluent neighborhoods, the ones that are on the sides of the hills, the stacked upon housing, and I've seen the conditions. And I can't imagine, this is 6 months, March 13th, we went into lockdown here. Yeah, I just can't imagine in those homes compared to where I'm at, what it's been like. And I have nothing but empathy for, what everyone's been trying to do. But I also understand the safety element, and as a Spanish-speaking visitor that's lived here for 6 months. I know when it's getting to the point and might be out of my depth to be safe in an environment. And it's time to relocate for safety, if for no other reason.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting question to add to you ladies. Cynthia talked about the bubble, and we probably have already created our own bubble, quote unquote, right, of people that you feel safe with. Now with your kids, or even your older kids maybe going back to work, they're going to create their little bubble. So are we just all going to be living in little bubbles and never ever being able to? Well, and the question was asked too in the show. One of the moms said, her little girl says, well, can I hug my friend? And the same thing, Susie, yeah, it was heartbreaking. And she says, I don't know. She says, I don't know. So is that the fact that we will never be openly friendly? Like, I haven't even seen any of you in real real person face to face. So, and I would love to, but am I included in your bubble? Primrose.
We were talking about our bubbles with our families, and we've already decided that once school starts, our kids aren't going to see their grandparents for a while. Like, we have to, just in case. We don't know what's going to happen. We know that they have all of the, like, we received some information from the school about how they're going to handle the cohorts. Not very much information. I'm sure they're going to try to say, don't interact, don't touch each other, but gotta be realistic. Even, I think my younger kid will be more likely to comply. My older kid, who's 12, it might still be like, here, look at my phone, and pass their phone to another kid. Like, something as innocent as that could cause a spread, anything like that. And I worry about if they're in a cohort of 15 or 30, that's still realistically a bubble of 1,000 people. If you really look at their parents and their workplaces and that, we can't expose my parents who are in their 70s, their other grandparents in their 70s, both of which who have underlying conditions. We actually have a Jewish holiday coming up. For those who don't know, I'm Jewish. We have a Jewish holiday coming up, and this is supposed to be a time we're supposed to get together with the community. It's being done virtually through the synagogue, and we're supposed to have a family dinner. We're actually moving that up to before school starts, and we're pretending that Jewish New Year is happening 2 weeks early because the grandparents are afraid of having the children in their house. Like I said, I can't remember who said it, Nanette, I think, we had to pivot. And this entire year has been about pivoting, and we're going to have to pivot again once school starts.
Wow. Yeah.
Primrose, to sort of build on what you were saying, I was just thinking about that last week, actually, because we didn't see my parents for a few months once the lockdown started. Not until my sister's birthday, I believe, which was almost July. And because, again, underlying conditions, elderly. And I thought about that last week, and it's like, you know what? I'm not going to get to see my parents when these kids go back to school because I can't risk it. And that really was hard to accept and to wrap my head around because, yeah, it's hard. I'm not looking forward to that transition to this different bubble at all, really. Yeah, but it has to be done to be safe. Yeah.
No, a lot of different things to consider. I mean, who would have ever thought going back to school? I mean, it was a big deal, right? Going back to see your friends. And now it's like, well, with any event, even if you go out to a restaurant, it's like, well, it's super hard. I don't know why this conversation just got so melancholy now. I think it's time for a joke, Robin. Oh,
I was sitting here like And there were, like, because I don't get to see my family at all, right? They live on the other side of the world, and I used to go back every year, and I was going to go back in April, and I'm not there. And I was like, the other day, I was like, shit, am I ever going to see my mum again, right? I don't know, right? Because Australia's talking about keeping their borders closed until at least the middle of next year at the moment, maybe longer. And theoretically, I could, as an Australian, go back, but hey, then I'm quarantined for 2 weeks, and then I'm there, and then because I'm on a work permit, then do I get to come home? So I think we have to, like, for me, I have to sit and look at, I have an amazing group of people in my life. Some I can see physically, and some I have a phenomenal relationship like this. And it was just recently, because we've always run training online, and I saw someone in person that I had done training with. Admittedly, they were like over there, and we both giggled because we went, oh, you have legs. And I think in thinking about that, we've got a whole lot of people that, I mean, truth be told, if I stood up, I've got sports shorts on, right? Because I'm like, yeah, why do I need my suit pants on? Nobody's seeing them. So we've got this world where we've got people that, you know, look like this, and then all of a sudden people are going to meet them in the future and go, oh, that's what your body looks like. So there's as much of a joke as I can give you right now. But maybe it's good, you know, I'm always going to say this. Maybe it's good for online dating, because I'm like, look, super cute. You just can't see the rest, right? And then you go out and you're like, oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. Mm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, we'll talk about dating and relationships. Well, we've had that conversation too, Robin, but anyways, it's just been so wonderful. Like I said this in the beginning. I would like to continue this. I know we're at 30 shows. Who knows? And it might, and it will kind of morph or pivot into something, I'm hoping, a little bit more live. And okay, I might not be able to get Cynthia in the studio, but certainly any one of you, you know, we're creating a safe place. One thing, we will still remain on Tuesdays, but I have to move it to 11:30 because some of my crew are gone back to school, so they've got some classes and anything. So I hope 11:30 works for all of you ladies, and I'll send a big note out to all the other ones that have joined our conversation. And so we'll see you next Tuesday, back to school. I think this conversation is going to continue. I think maybe Susie, could you be our correspondent down there at the school grounds and give us a report on how they're going one by one with their masks on and their backpacks and hand sanitizers. And and I want to add too, I heard some of the high schools, and you probably know this too, Primrose maybe too, or Susie too. So the kids won't move, but the teachers will move. So that's one kind of thing. So you're not having hundreds of kids going into like, that's what my first thing is, like, how are they going to change classes and walk through the halls? And then the lunchroom will be staggered times within the classroom. So a new norm. So that was something going, oh, okay. But like you said, we can pivot, we can morph, we're resilient, we have empathy, we have courage, and we have acceptance without understanding, but then building towards acceptance with understanding. I love that, Cynthia. So stay safe, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you back next Tuesday at 11:30. Okay. Bye-bye.
Happy belated, Tracy. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Are we singing before we go off?
Happy birthday.
Ready?
Sing.
Everyone off mute. Everyone off mute. Come on, here we go. Ready? Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday
Day
to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
Dear Tracy.
Birthday to you.
Happy
So we're forming a
birthday
choir after
to
this.
You're never going to be
That was
like
the
a
best
choir.
words. Yeah, that was the best, worst happy birthday ever. Oh, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.